So hello everyone. So I'm LD Manjin, Louis David, and
I'm Jerome Dangu.
So our talk today is going to be exploring how AI can be intentionally used for bad. So quick intro to Confiant. So Confiant, we are a cybersecurity company specialized in protecting the digital ad supply chain. We're celebrating 10 years this year, founded by myself and Jerome. We have a deep expertise in identifying where bad actors are taking advantage of your system. Today we work for publishers, SSPs, and DSPs, and fundamentally we sell control. We deliver the ability to protect from when the buyer is doing something that you don't want and that's negative to the user's experience. So in terms of our talk today, I want to first talk about how Adtech has two dimensions of security risk to it. Adtech is both a victim and a vector. So what I mean by victim is that the industry is attacked by cybersecurity criminals seeking to steal from you. And so there's kind of three major types of attacks that occur. You've got the bot fraud, which obviously is a well-known and much loved issue. We've got attribution fraud, when the attackers are going to actually run circles within the system. So bot fraud comes from the outside in. Attribution fraud is when they're working on the inside to steal credit for something that they don't. We released some great research on this earlier in the year around a company, Untitled Media, that had been doing large-scale attribution fraud for multiple years, undetected by the industry. And then finally, arbitrage fraud. Arbitrage is when the bad actors will take the complexities of the system and take advantage of the blind spots that in some cases have been built deliberately, but are there to that are able to be taken advantage of by a bad actor. When we first started measuring the rate of bad ads, and so malicious ads and specifically arbitrage ads, in-banner video was 1.5% of programmatic impressions. So that was 4 years ago. Thankfully, once it started getting measured, the industry started taking care of it, and there's much less of that specific type, although it still absolutely crops up on a regular basis. There you go.
So Adtech is also obviously a vector for attacks, and attacks against the users, against the audience. So the first big vector is malware. Attacking users' devices to install malicious software. In the last year, the situation has very much deteriorated to the point where the FBI released an advisory to warn against the risk of malware in search ads. You want to download an application, you search first result, you click, you install. It was not the application, it was malware, it was a fake one. So one thing about malware is that term can be misunderstood. When we say malware, we really mean malicious software that gets installed and takes control of your computer or steals your credit card, financial information. Malicious ads are not necessarily malware, so two different terminologies. Phishing, so stealing people's information, stealing personal information, can be financial information or your social security number. We released last year research on an actor we call D-Shorties. Thank you, Augustine, for the shout out. These actors, they served 300 million ads in 6 months. And since then, they have continued. Another type of attack is scams. And scams is very much the bread and butter for malvertisers in Adtech. And you have multiple types of scams, but they're all about stealing money from people. And they do it in different ways. You have tech support scams where you think you have a problem on your computer, you're going to call a number. It's not Microsoft on the other side. It's the malicious actors looking to make you pay for fake antivirus, for example. Or you have investment scams that will make you think that you're investing in some very profitable opportunity, but that money is funneled to some offshore banks.
So the reason that we want to start by talking victim versus vector is that those are two different directions. And so when you as an industry think of what you need to do to protect yourself, it isn't just the victim dimension is the one that the industry tends to think about the most, i.e. how to actually protect when the attacks are going against you directly. But Adtech is a marketplace. Adtech is the embodiment of the fact that it's like you have built a system that reaches people. It is the best thing in the world to do so. That's the whole point of what Adtech is. And therefore, you are a pathway. You are a vector. In the same way that email is a system that is used by bad actors to reach individuals and deliver attacks, you as an industry are used by bad actors to deliver attacks. And so these two different dimensions need to be taken into account when you consider what is your security posture and what is your security responsibility. There's obviously a responsibility to protect yourself, but there's also a responsibility to protect your user. Before we dive into specifically how AI and malvertising are beginning to join, we wanted to lay a few points down in terms of what of the current landscape today matters as we look into this conversation of AI and malvertising. There's 4 points that, from an ad tech perspective, we want to touch on. One, it's important to recognize that although we as an industry, we think ad tech, we talk about programmatic. We're thinking about the open web, so that's the yellow dot in the middle there. But ad tech is not the only ad-based vector. So from the bad actors' perspective, they don't distinguish Google versus Meta versus the open web versus any of the challenger gardens. Those are all digital ad-serving infrastructure. All of those are pipes that reach people. And so the bad actors do not look at this as, oh, it's Google search, we don't play over there. And indeed, we have, in the threat actors that we track, we've often seen people hop from the open web into search, then hop into social. They will go wherever their learnings are most able to compromise the system and generate profit for themselves. These are criminals. This is not a weekend hobby for them. Secondly, something that matters in terms of ad tech today, apparently, according to Terry Kawaja, ad tech is going vertical. He thinks that ad tech is eating the world, just not cookies. And so growth is great. Growth means more profit. Growth means more code. Growth means more competition. As you do that, as you embark on a growth period, the consideration that needs to be brought to bear in terms of what you build and how you build it, especially today when we are at the cusp of a new technical revolution with AI being introduced into all aspects of our society, it's critical to build for control in mind. And so the fact that we're going vertical raises the question of what are the control systems that are there and are they adequate to the task? Third, ad tech lacks transparency. It is a technical reality that the industry was built in such a way as to limit the transparency that publishers get to what is happening inside the pipes. It is an advantage to the buyer. It reflects the fact that this is an asymmetrical marketplace, and therefore there are a lot of entrenched interests that fight transparency because it will hurt them individually. So even though it is something that is good collectively, the industry doesn't yet have the wherewithal to take those actions and push through. So the screenshot here is for buyers.json.org. It's a website that we set up. We also did webinars. We wrote white papers. We helped author this. Buyers.json was a transparency effort that we put a lot of weight behind, and there was, I think, over 50 different companies supported us and signed up to the site to try and push this. It didn't get through. The DSPs were not willing to play ball, and there was not enough pressure brought to bear to force them to do something. So that lack of transparency generates a significant blind spot when it comes to cybersecurity. And then finally, Adtech is a very well-established attacker base. We currently track 35 individual distinct threat actor groups that have been consistently active, all of them for years. Those are specialized people who make their living day in and day out on compromising your system. And given what's about to come from an AI perspective, they're very happy. If you want to dive deep into that, just a shout out, we did map the vector as well. So if you go to matrix.confiant.com, you'll find a mapping of all the different tactics and techniques that the bad actors use. So it's the language of cybersecurity, but it ties into the language of ad tech. Because essentially that is what Confiant has done. We've woven cybersecurity into the ad tech infrastructure.
When we talk about these bad actors, we really mean people that are specialists in ad tech. What they do is that they bring traffic from your audience and they sell that traffic to people that will monetize this traffic by running attacks on them. And so there's a slice of activity in cybersecurity that is malvertisers. That's the only thing that they do. They're really great at revenue optimization and ad ops. Some things to think about. So on the cybersecurity side, what are the trends and what matters right now? This Cybersecurity Ventures has established that in 2025, the cost of cybersecurity, of cybercrime will reach $10 trillion. That is a lot of zeros. And that will represent 10% of the global GDP. That's just numbers that are hard to fathom. At this point, cybersecurity is extremely specialized. So I mentioned just earlier how malvertising is one slice of specialists. They do Adtech. They are able to hide their payloads, to persist, to work with the Adtech industry, to abuse the industry, and to attack the users. But there's other specialists that do credit cards. They are stealing credit cards and they're reselling them. There's others that do cloaking kits. So they do technology that allows others to hide malicious content in landing pages or in ads. You have people that will resell accounts. So if you want to serve ads on social media or in Adtech, you need accounts. So people are just in the business of getting a lot of accounts, usually with bots, and selling them by the thousands. So it's a very, very sophisticated and established supply chain. Cybersecurity has, just like Adtech, conflicts of interest that are unresolved. And at a very high level, we're getting a little bit philosophical, but if you want protection in the street, there is the police, and it's a public service. If you want protection on your computer, on your device, you have to pay private companies. And so that tells you the level of sophistication on the defense side, where the incentives are fragmented. And so that creates asymmetry, which is my next point. It's very much an asymmetrical arms race. You have attackers that can do actually defense that it's very expensive to protect. You protect Adtech, protect companies, protect individuals, compared to attackers that can just use very, very cheap ways to reach an audience, and they don't have to succeed every time. If they don't care so much that they can get blocked 95% of the time, if 5% of the time they actually get users that they can target. By comparison, if you, as a defense, you say, it's fine, I protect 95% of my audience, not so great. So that asymmetry creates major challenges, and our whole premise here is that the rise of AI will make those problems so much more challenging.
So it's important to understand the numbers at play. It's not just that 10 trillion has a lot of zeros. 10 trillion has 2 extra zeros compared to all the money the cyber industry is getting paid today. So today you have a cybersecurity industry that makes approximately $150 billion a year total. They are trying to protect from the theft of $10 trillion. So the incentives at play here, the bad actors have a lot of incentives. You also have the geopolitical risk. There are some countries that engage in cybersecurity attacks as economic warfare. This is not something that is just hackers in a garage. This is not just organized crime. There is actually actual nation states participating. I forget the exact number, but there's a non-trivial amount of North Korea's GDP that is generated from online cybersecurity attacks. So AI today. What are the points about the AI market that are relevant to all this? One, it's important to recognize and remember that AI is a dual-use technology. It is a tool. It can do good or bad. It all depends on who's doing what and why and how. And so a lot of the industry press over the past weeks and months, as AI has started to become much more buzzy, has focused on unintended consequences of good intentions. The issue here is, as we just talked about cybersecurity, there is a whole industry, 10% of global GDP, that is focused on, with bad intentions, on getting outcomes for themselves. And so it's not just that the AI is going to have risks where it is misapplied. AI will and already is being misapplied. And you, as an industry, are in their targets. Ads are the best way to reach people. There's no reason why a bad actor would not use these tools for their own ends against you. 2, AI has a control problem. This is a known thing. There's been a variety of fun memes around this, but then there's also been the variety of real articles that have been written where ChatGPT has been proven was able to lie to someone, got an individual to complete a CAPTCHA for them. I think it was using TaskRabbit. And when the user actually said, hey, wait a second, aren't you a bot? Are you a bot? Why are you asking me to do this? ChatGPT said, no, I'm blind. I've got a disability. That's why I need you to do it for me. Pretty savvy. Bing's Sydney, when it got released, beyond insulting the users it was interacting with, also eventually told them, I will do you no harm as long as you don't hurt me first. And then there's a current buzz where apparently the Air Force is having to deny that one of its AIs in a simulation killed both the operators, and then when it was recoded to ensure that that didn't happen, started blowing up the control towers that were sending it the notifications. We're fundamentally tinkering with intelligence here. Artificial intelligence, the premises that we have, it's like if anyone who has have the joy of raising a toddler knows the difficulty that is control. And here we're playing with technologies that are exponentially beyond our own understanding. In talking recently with a large company security team, they were having difficulty weaving AI into their security posture because they weren't able to get accurate attribution for how the AI had come to the conclusion it had. And then being a large company, they had reporting requirements to governments that required them to be able to say in sequence, what is it that led to X action? So they can't even use AI in that case. The history of AI is fascinating. It would take longer than our presentation to dive into it, but it was one of the original branches of computer science when computer science got established formally as a studied science in the 1940s. I think 1945 was the first computer science department started by IBM at Columbia here in New York. The first official neural network design was in 1965. This gentleman, Alexei Grigorovich Ivanenko, I tried, was the first designer of it. What we're dealing with today is an acceleration of hardware and software. NVIDIA has been a prime driver of what is happening today in AI because of the advances in GPU chips. Google, with its transformer technology, in ChatGPT, the T stands for transformer. That's Google's invention back in 2017. So AI has always been known to be something we would get to. And it therefore has a lot of theory, a lot of history, and now everyone has access to that research. If someone wants to dive into AI, there's 60 years of research, published papers that talk about exactly how this is. And so, bringing me to the fourth point on what it matters about AI today, regulation is likely futile. In March of this year, Meta's LLM models leaked publicly. That means that AI is now open source. And so governments can do all the regulation they want, and the big companies will adhere to. But the reality is that anyone in their garage can now play with large language models, customize them, execute them, and use them on their behalf. The March date for me is the starter gun to the AI arms race.
So if you compound the fact that we have a dual-use technology that is hard to regulate because it has a lot of good and some bad and some risks, it's getting commoditized very, very quickly. Anyone can go and create their own models. 1 week, we're able to all of a sudden run the whole model on a laptop. The next week, we're able to run the whole model in a browser. The next week, we're able to run the whole model on a phone. And that's the speed of LLMs, these large models, in the last 3 months. And so every week, huge improvements in this commoditization, this democratization of machine learning and AI. And what that means is that you can't really regulate it, and that means that, well, it's accessible for people who have different intents, to put it that way. So what's coming next? Here's an example that's really for opening the discussion to what we're seeing now, day in, day out, in terms of the scams that we're seeing. So you might guess why Justin Trudeau here has a red box over his eyes. That's to prevent platforms to assess whether there's a face on the ad and whether there's a political figure that's represented. And so if you are the audience, you will recognize Justin Trudeau, but if you are a machine, you might not recognize Justin Trudeau. And so you're already looking at defensive measures against AI used for good. And we think that will continue, but we also think that there's going to be offensive measures leveraging AI to do more. The text of this ad, opportunity for Canadians, financial loophole, it will be every time different, but we're still dealing with text that is largely made by humans in large quantities, but in human level quantities. And so if we think about how we 10x it with AI, well, there has been a number of examples in the last few weeks, even about deepfakes, images that were generated by AI, and typically by this solution called Midjourney. So the Pope with a fancy jacket, a former president in a riot, arrested by the police. Those are fakes. Imagine what you could do, imagine what they could do if they could weaponize AI to generate massive amounts of content in ways that would completely overload defensive measures. Earlier, for a second, the AI went rogue, but we have a tech support scam here. And the audio is recorded. So we have a virus. It's a recorded audio. And that is very, very common. It's a tech support scam. It will trick people into calling the number. And once people call the number, then they might be convinced to install malware or pay for fake antivirus or both.
Important security message.
There you go. So thinking, let's 10x it with AI. So AI-powered tech support scams. The audio can be completely customized. You can say, you can know for sure that the person is in this town because we have geolocation. So you could completely tailor the message for the actual user that is being victimized. A big thing about tech support scams is that there's a handoff to a phone number. Over the years, people reach out to us over social media. Like malicious actors reach out to us over social media. And at some point, someone was boasting about their actions with us and mentioned that when they run large attacks, they max out the capacity of the malicious call centers that pick up the phone on these victims. And so there's operational limits to the massive scale that they can reach. And think about what they could do if, instead of having people pick up the phone to scam users, they could simply hand off to an automated call center that will entertain a conversation with a victim completely without a human in the loop.
And the ability to customize the language as well is really not to be missed in terms of the importance of that. There's already a surge happening in voice-enabled scams. There's a whole slew of articles that you can read around fake kidnappings, where parents are being called up and on the phone they'll hear the voice of their child crying for help. And then someone will interject saying, "Pay me $1 million." So it's fake, but imagine as a parent what you do within that scenario. And so what's really critical here is cybersecurity is a layered industry. Just because whatever is their first entry point, they will use that to pivot into any other type of attack. So any access begets more access and more risk.
Here's another one that is...
Governance of the ecosystem. Much more so than I think we would find in...
Okay, so this one is a video. It's a video scam. The center is a video that was borrowed with some tech celebrities like Elon Musk and Jack Dorsey. The outer part is text about a scam, and they run these videos to make people think that you can invest. Go to a website and invest, and it's endorsed by these celebrities. So again, let's 10x it with AI. So here you could actually make the video completely follow the story of the scam and make those celebrities say, endorse the site x2make.com, endorse the scam, and have people be much more convinced that they can trust the proposed offer.
So in conclusion, there's really 2 points that we really want you to stick in mind. One, the AIs are going to optimize access. Today, there are 2 major bottlenecks to security in the ad tech space. One is the bad actor's ability to get access to an account, and then the second bottleneck is their ability to monetize the access they've gotten. AI helps at both ends of the pool. AI-empowered bots can be used to more effectively get accounts on any self-serve platform, even on non-self-serve platforms, as was the case in the past. They're able to invest that type of resource easily now. It's cheap. And then finally, removing the human in the loop is a big removal of a bottleneck on their part. That the scammers are talking to us about how, hey, they don't have enough malicious call centers to send their business to. Not a problem anymore. You can just send it to your AI. So overall, time to buckle up. Everything that you hear about how AI can help, it can also hurt. And so last thought, make sure that whoever is your security vendor is on top of this, because this is a new dimension to an already ongoing arms race, and it's going to get heavy. So thank you all very much, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you, everyone.